you guys are providing services to a lot of telcos in the industry. Is what you're doing only for the telcos, or would somebody like either one of these companies actually be involved in what you do in terms of offering your service?
Yeah, I mean, anybody and everybody with a service can take advantage of what we're doing. And I guess the first thing I need to do is I need to make the case for why folks like LaShawn and Rob would use channel partners like telcos, for example. Not just telcos, there are other channel partners as well that can reach consumers en masse. And I think the arguments are probably well understood, and I'm sure they'll be made at the conference during the course of these few days. There is massive customer reach that can be achieved if you can get your content delivered through home broadband, mobile communications, telecommunications channels, not just in the United States, but globally as well. Obviously, that's particularly interesting to a business like Starz. So that's the main argument. But there's also some really interesting evidence that's accumulating that consumers that are acquired for these services through these indirect channels like telcos tend to hang around longer for all sorts of reasons, and we're just beginning to kind of understand why that might be the case. So there's goodness for everybody in putting together these bundled relationships and bundled partnerships. It's good for folks with content because they can increase their customer reach. There seems to be a longer lifetime value when customers are acquired through these channels, and clearly it's good for the channel partners themselves. Because they're driven by motivations like customer retention, churn reduction, customer retention. They also want to acquire more customers. They want to increase the average revenue per customer in the telco industry. That's a very important KPI that's tracked. So it seems to work really well. The synergy seems to work really well. So in the case of Bango, we believe that an increasing number of consumer subscription services will acquire those services through these channels. And what we're starting to see now is a really interesting phenomenon emerging, which we've labeled in the past 12 months, literally superbundling. And I think most folks will be familiar with their telecommunication service provider bundling a Netflix or a Disney Plus or an HBO, those kinds of phenomena that we all see. But what we're starting to see now is the emergence of a role for the telecommunications industry in becoming almost a content hub.
So would superbundling actually be an individual streaming company like Starz or Revry, or would it be
it's more likely to be somebody who's actually not in the content business themselves. So there's no conflict of interest. So it's more likely to be a T-Mobile, AT&T, Verizon, Comcast, somebody like that. It could even be a financial institution, and certainly in Asia and Europe, we're starting to see some financial services companies trying to address that problem of having a largely undifferentiated first-party service by bringing interesting, cool new content in and offering that as part of what they give to the consumer. So super bundling is that phenomenon of when you go to T-Mobile or you go to Verizon Plus Play, you can see 20, 30, maybe even 40 services all conveniently packaged together for the consumer.
Okay, cool. Right, that sounds very interesting. In fact, you brought up something. Sorry.
I was just going to say that as Anil and I are talking, that we're partners with Bango in a particular offering. And what he's describing is something that Starz has been involved with for a long time. I mean, it's the way I think about it is that starting life as a premium cable channel is, we are partnering with all kinds of carriers and so forth. And Starz never really dropped that model. I mean, even in streaming, when there were a lot of the new offerings were coming out and kind of trying to be the biggest or the everything to everyone, Starz didn't really, we've always been kind of like, yeah, you can get us direct to consumer, but you can also have some of the bigger partners that you can probably guess, and also the kind of thing that Anil's describing, where it's not just the Disneys or Amazons, but also some of the telcos around the world, and even some. There's one that I wish I could remember what it was, but it was almost like a shopping kind of service that is massive that we also partner with.
Okay. In fact, I know that Revry also does a lot of would we call it distribution deals or partnerships? How do you call it, LaShawn?
We usually call them their partnerships because a lot of the channels that we're working with we also kind of coordinate with them on marketing efforts. So
Okay.
it's not just, hey, here's a channel, thanks, goodbye. You know, it's a, hey, here's a channel, and here's what we're doing in this month, or here's what we're doing for this holiday, or here's what we're doing for this initiative, or Pride's coming up, and we have all this content that, you know, you may be interested in featuring because, you know, Revry's doing this, 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 and this. So, you know, it's more of a partnership. And to be honest, that's really what we look for, especially as a smaller streamer. Like we need and want those partnerships for the same reason that you're saying, like, you know, you're a part of a larger ecosystem. Okay, well, how do we get to 1% of their ecosystem, 3% of their ecosystem, 5% of their ecosystem? So those are the things that we're looking to do with a partnership, grow that relationship with that company as well as with their user base.